The Holy One, blessed be He, and welcome to Beit Yisrael International's Voice of Torah podcast. I am Gadi Ephraim, and today we explore Tikkun Brit Hadshah in Parashat Vayigash, 5785, under the theme, Stand up and lift your heads, your redemption is drawing near. Together, we'll uncover the powerful lessons of reconciliation, unity, and redemption from Judah and Joseph with host agents Abraham and Sarah. Jewish Yeshua embodies the unity of Judah and Joseph, fulfilling the prophetic vision of gathering Israel's exiles and inviting the nations into the divine plan. His call, stand up and lift your heads, echoes the Torah's promise of redemption. As Jewish Yeshua said, I am your brother, kindly draw close. I am Jewish Yeshua, your brother. And he said, I seek my achim. This moment highlights reconciliation and unity, calling the 70 nations to recognize that salvation comes through the Jewish people as a light guiding the world toward redemption. He calls us to a deeper understanding of unity, rooted in the Torah, yet universal in its scope. Through him, the dispersed exiles of Israel are gathered, and the nations are drawn into the divine plan. Thank you for joining me today on Beit Yisrael International's Voice of Torah podcast. May the teachings of Torah continue to light your path and inspire you to be a vessel for unity and peace in the world.
Today, we're going on a deep dive into a concept that really caught my attention.
Right.
Jewish Yeshua Hatzadik. It's presented, by Beit Yisrael International and in the teachings of Gadi Ephraim as this model for reconciliation.
Interesting.
And I was immediately intrigued by your source material here.
Oh, yeah.
What I found so fascinating is how this idea kind of connects these ancient Jewish traditions with these concepts of unity and even hints at these ideas of global redemption.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff.
It's like a historical mystery with spiritual implications.
Definitely.
So I'm really curious to see where this all leads.
Yeah, you've hit on something key there.
Okay.
It's not just about looking back. It's about using these ideas to bridge divides.
Okay.
And to understand how they might actually apply to our world today.
Okay, so let's unpack this whole concept of Yeshua Hatzadik. It's a new term for me. What does it mean, and why is Israel International emphasizing this particular interpretation?
One of the most powerful things that Beit Yisrael highlights is this phrase that's attributed to Yeshua, kindly draw close, I am Jewish, Yeshua your brother.
Wow.
And it's presented as this call for healing and restoration, not just within the Jewish community, but extending outwards. It's like, imagine a family that has been separated for generations and finally coming back together.
Yeah.
It has that sense of reunion and reconciliation, but on this grand scale.
It's a really striking image. Yeah. It makes me think about divided communities or even nations that have been at odds for centuries.
Yeah.
Is this idea about bringing people together?
That's a great connection.
Okay.
According to these sources, it's about gathering the exiles of Israel and extending this divine covenant to all nations.
Wow.
It's this vision of inclusivity and shared destiny. It's about breaking down those barriers that have separated people for millennia.
So where does Gadi Ephraim fit into all of this?
Yeah.
Is he helping us understand the deeper meaning?
His insights are highly valued by these groups because he brings to light the spiritual dimensions of Yeshua's purpose and significance.
Yeah.
You can think of him as like a guide who helps illuminate those more intricate details and the symbolism that are woven into this whole tapestry.
This idea, unity and reconciliation, keeps coming up. The source material also focuses on the story of Judah and Joseph.
Right.
And I'm familiar with that story, but I'm not sure how it connects to all of this.
Okay, sure.
Could you shed some light on that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The story of Judah and Joseph is deeply symbolic in Jewish tradition.
Okay.
They represent this archetype of healing divisions and overcoming past hurts. In a sense, their reconciliation is a blueprint for how to address these really deep-seated conflicts, not just within families, but on a much larger scale.
So are you saying that their story is like a model?
Yes.
Okay.
And Beit Yisrael International points to this phrase, stand up and lift your heads, is this pivotal moment.
Okay.
It's not just about the words.
Right.
It's about hope, redemption, and the possibility of true reconciliation, even after immense hardship.
It sounds like there's even more to it, though, than just resolving past conflicts.
You're right.
There's this bigger picture that Beit Yisrael is emphasizing.
They see this reconciliation as a catalyst for Israel stepping into its role as a spiritual leader.
Right.
It's about inner healing, leading to outward influence. In essence, it's reconciliation within that creates the conditions for a kind of global redemption.
So a way for all of humanity to align with what they believe is the Creator's will.
That's it.
Okay, I'm beginning to see how all of this connects.
Okay.
But how does Beit Yisrael International act on this vision?
This is where the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe come in. He emphasized Israel's mission to elevate these sparks of holiness that are found among all nations. Beit Yisrael International views their work as directly connected to this mission. Think of them as trying to spread the light of the Torah, sharing its wisdom with everyone.
So it sounds like they're saying that everyone has a part to play.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they use Judah and Joseph as examples for how to do that.
Right.
They believe that Judah's selflessness and Joseph's forgiveness are those qualities needed to heal the world. Their reunion becomes this powerful symbol of the harmony required for global redemption.
This is starting to make sense, but I'm wondering, what does this Jewish Yeshua Hatzadik concept mean for us today?
That's a great question.
Is this just an interesting story from the past?
Right.
Or is there a message that we can apply?
Yeah, that's where we'll pick up in part 2. We'll delve deeper into the implications of this phrase, Ani Yehuda Yeshua Achim, which translates to, I am Judah, Jewish Yeshua, your brother.
Okay.
This statement seems to be the heart of the matter.
Right.
It encapsulates Yeshua's mission as a unifier and a bridge builder.
All right. I'm already hooked.
Great.
Can't wait to dive into the next part and see where this takes us.
Sounds good. So you were asking about what all of this means for us today. That phrase we ended on, Ani Yehuda, Yeshua Achim.
Right.
I'm Judah, Jewish Yeshua, your brother.
Right.
It's not just an introduction. It's a statement that's really packed with meaning.
It does feel like more than a simple greeting. It's almost like a mission statement.
Exactly.
I am curious about this parallel they draw between Joseph revealing himself to his brothers and Yeshua standing as this unifier.
Right.
What do they see in that connection?
Think about the emotional weight
of
that moment when Joseph revealed himself.
Yeah.
It was about recognizing shared heritage. It was about overcoming past hurts.
Right.
And ultimately choosing family over those old wounds. That's the kind of profound shift in perspective that Yeshua HaTzadik represents.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You've mentioned Yeshua is presented as a tzaddik. I'll admit I'm not familiar with that term.
Okay.
What does that mean in this context?
A tzaddik is often translated as a righteous person.
Okay.
Someone who exemplifies a deep connection to the divine.
All right.
You could think of figures like Moses or King David, people known for their spiritual depth and leadership.
Okay.
In this case, Yeshua HaTzadik is seen as this bridge between humanity and God, drawing people closer to the divine and helping them to navigate these spiritual divides.
So it's not just about bringing people together on a human level.
Right.
It's about healing that separation between humanity and the divine.
That's how these sources understand it.
Wow.
And what's fascinating is they're emphasizing that Yeshua's teachings aren't something separate from Jewish tradition.
Right.
They see them as an extension of the Torah.
Okay.
A way of fulfilling its purpose and spreading its wisdom globally.
You know, when I was going through the material, I was struck by the way that Beit Yisrael International is so adamant that Yeshua's message is rooted in the Torah. They seem to be pushing back against this idea that his teachings are somehow separate from Judaism.
They absolutely are. And for them, that connection is crucial.
Right.
It's about understanding Yeshua's call for unity as a natural progression of the Torah's message.
Yeah.
a way of taking those ancient teachings and making them relevant to the world today.
That brings up something else I wanted to ask about.
Sure.
The sources mentioned Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David.
Right.
And I'm not clear on what those terms mean or how they relate to Yeshua HaTzadik. Can you break that down for me?
Of course.
And for our listener?
These are concepts that have evolved over centuries. But essentially, Mashiach ben Yosef is often described as the suffering servant.
Right.
The one who prepares the way for redemption.
Okay.
They pave the path for Mashiach ben David, who is associated with the ultimate establishment of the divine kingdom.
Right.
It's like one prepares the ground and the other builds upon it.
Okay, so in this framework,
yeah,
would you say that Yeshua HaTzadik?
That's precisely how these sources interpret it.
Okay.
They see his life and teachings as embodying that suffering servant archetype. He sustains life.
Yeah.
He reconciles divisions, and he prepares the world for that next stage of redemption.
So less about instant transformation and more about creating the conditions for lasting peace and unity.
It's a process, not a sudden event.
Right.
And Gadi Ephraim really emphasizes that Mashiach ben Yosef's mission is both universal, encompassing all of humanity, and deeply rooted in the covenant of Israel.
Now, one last thing before we move on.
Okay.
The sources keep mentioning this idea of the gathering of nations.
Right.
What role does that play in the whole?
It's a central theme.
Okay.
And Beit Yisrael International believes it's a fulfillment of Torah prophecy.
Right.
They see this gathering of nations under the divine kingdom as the culmination of Yeshua's work, the realization of his message of unity and reconciliation.
So in a sense, it's about the nations of the world recognizing...
That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
And they draw these parallels between Joseph's reunion with his brothers and Yeshua's call for this global unity.
Right.
It's as if they're saying history is repeating itself.
Yeah.
But on a much grander scale.
It's like that personal story is now playing out on a global stage.
And Gadi Ephraim is very clear that reconciliation is the foundation of redemption.
Right.
It's not just about forgiveness. It's about actively working to restore those broken connections.
Yeah.
Both within ourselves and in the world around us.
We've covered so much ground here.
We have.
If we were to summarize this Jewish Yeshua HaTzadik concept, what would you say are the key takeaways?
I'd say the core message is a call for unity, for bridging divides, whether they're religious, cultural, or political.
So it's about recognizing our shared humanity.
Absolutely.
Our interconnectedness and understanding that reconciliation is essential for a just and harmonious world.
It's not just a nice idea.
Right.
It's a necessity.
These are powerful ideas and very relevant to the challenges that we face today.
Absolutely. All right, so we're diving into this idea of Ephraim and Judah reuniting.
Yeah, it's a big one.
And you're interested in more than just like the historical event, right? We're talking about deep spiritual meaning here.
Exactly, yeah. Like what does it mean according to, say, Jewish teachings, right?
Okay, so that's where we come in. We'll be looking at Midrash, Kabbalah, even Hasidic thought.
We're going deep.
Trying to understand how profound this concept really is.
It's amazing how much this reunification idea touches on. I mean, it goes everywhere.
Like where? Give me an example.
It's connected to the Messianic era, for one thing.
Okay, that's huge.
And then there's this idea of healing cosmic disunity. It's a concept that comes up in some Jewish mystical traditions.
Wow, that's getting pretty out there.
It is, but we can even find some really practical lessons in all of this, things you can actually use in your own life.
Okay, now I'm really interested. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's back up a little.
Sure.
We're talking about more than just two tribes getting back together, right?
Right.
Like, what do Ephraim and Judah symbolize on a deeper level?
Yeah, it goes way beyond just geography. I mean, they represent these core forces within the Jewish experience, you know, like essential parts of a whole.
I see, like two halves of something.
Exactly. Historically, of course, they represent the divided kingdoms, Ephraim leading the north, Judah in the south.
Right, right.
But their reunification points to something much deeper. It's a spiritual restoration, and our sources say it's absolutely crucial for ultimate redemption.
So this is way bigger than I initially thought.
Oh, yeah.
So how does this reunification happen? Like, what do the sources actually say about it?
Well, one thing that comes up again and again is this idea that unity is essential for the messianic process.
Like you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, it's not just some nice side effect. It's like a fundamental requirement.
That's interesting. Makes you think, doesn't it?
Right.
Like all the division we see in the world today.
For sure.
Even within ourselves,
Yeah.
Maybe that's holding us back from reaching some greater potential.
It's a powerful thought. And, the sources actually give some specific examples of how this plays out.
Really? Like what?
Well, there's a teaching in the Midrash that says the Messianic era can't even begin until there's harmony between Ephraim and Judah. It's like they're two halves of a key, you need both to unlock the door. And this idea that internal division weakens spiritual strength, that's a big theme that comes up a lot.
It makes sense when you think about it. If you're constantly battling with yourself, how can you achieve anything?
Exactly. And it gets even wilder when you start looking at the Kabbalistic perspective.
Kabbalah. Okay. What do they have to say about it?
Well, the Zohar, which is a central text in Kabbalah, it suggests the separation between Ephraim and Judah isn't just a human problem.
What do you mean?
It's like it reflects a disharmony in the spiritual realms, too.
Whoa, cosmic disharmony. That's a big jump.
I know, right? But the Zohar actually connects Ephraim and Judah to fundamental divine attributes. Think of it this way. Ephraim represents kindness. It's that outward-focused energy, And then Judah is more about strength, inward-focused discipline.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see where you're going with this.
Their reunification from this perspective, it's about balancing those cosmic forces. It's achieving this harmony that affects everything.
Okay, that's a lot to process.
Yeah.
So we're talking about global change.
Yes.
The Messianic era.
Yeah.
Even cosmic balance.
Uh-huh.
And all of this hinges on this reunification.
And that's just the beginning. We haven't even touched on Rabbi Isaac Luria's teachings yet.
Oh, there's more.
He's a major figure in Kabbalah, and he adds another layer to all of this. He taught that Ephraim embodies Torah wisdom specifically, while Judah represents kingship and prayer.
So it's not just about peace between these two, right?
Yeah.
It's about bringing together different ways of connecting to the divine.
Exactly. It's not just about getting along, their unity. It's about unleashing this powerful spiritual force by integrating all these essential aspects of Jewish life. And then you bring in Hasidic thought, and the whole idea of reunification gets even richer.
Okay, how so?
Well, they see it as this reflection of ultimate divine unity,
Yeah.
Like this tiny mirror of the oneness that exists at the highest level.
So we're striving for unity here on Earth that reflects so much grander cosmic unity.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. And Rabbi Nachman, he was big in Chassidism. He really emphasized the role of leadership in all this.
Oh, interesting. What did he have to say about it?
He believed that righteous leadership was crucial.
Crucial for what?
For fostering unity and healing all those internal divisions we were just talking about.
Right. So we can actually move toward redemption.
Exactly.
You mentioned righteous leadership. What would that even look like? What can we actually do as individuals to help bring about that kind of unity? I mean, it feels kind of overwhelming.
That's a great question. I mean, those are the kind of questions our sources want us to wrestle with. It's not just about waiting for someone else to come and fix everything. We all have a part to play.
Okay, so what's our part?
Well, before we dive into that, let's look at another fascinating aspect of this whole reunification idea.
Okay, what's that?
It's the concept of two messiahs.
Wait, two messiahs? I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, it's a pretty mind-blowing concept. One's called Mashiach ben Yosef, often connected to Ephraim, and then there's Mashiach ben David, who's linked to Judah.
Okay, I'm with you so far. Two messiahs, each linked to one of the tribes.
Right. And they each have a different focus. Mashiach ben Yosef is generally understood to be focused on the material world, things like gathering the exiled Jewish people, rectifying injustices, that sort of thing.
I see. So more practical concerns.
Right. And then you have Mashiach ben David, who brings about the spiritual completion of redemption.
Okay, so like eternal peace, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So the reunification of Ephraim and Judah is about the harmony we need between the material and the spiritual.
Yes. For complete redemption. It's about recognizing that both are essential for true wholeness.
Not just individually, but for the world as a whole, right?
You got it. And there are actually stories in the texts that bring all of this to life.
Oh, really? Like what? I love stories.
Well, one that really sticks with you is Ezekiel's vision of the two sticks.
Two sticks. Okay, what about them?
He sees one representing Judah and the other representing Ephraim, and they're miraculously joined together as one.
Wow, that's a powerful image.
It is, and it makes you think about that saying, stronger together. Like when we're divided, we're so much weaker than when we're unified.
Absolutely.
And then there's the story of Joseph and Judah's reconciliation. It's incredibly moving.
Oh, right. Because Joseph represents Ephraim. I mean, their relationship was so complicated.
It was, wasn't it? There was jealousy, betrayal, forgiveness.
And then that emotional reunion at the end.
It's a beautiful microcosm of the larger reunification. They had to go through so much to come back together.
They did.
But it was their shared purpose, their devotion to their father, and ultimately to God that brought them there. They each had their individual strengths. But those strengths became even more powerful when they were united. And this idea of forgiveness, I don't know about you, but I've had to learn some hard lessons about forgiveness in my own life. Holding on to anger and resentment just ends up hurting everyone.
You're telling me it's so powerful to just let those things go. I think we sometimes underestimate how much those little personal choices can affect everything around us. Like we're all participating in this reunification in some way.
I think you're right. It's a beautiful thought. And it connects with this idea that this reunification isn't just something we wait for. It's a call to action right now.
Okay, so what can we do? Where do we even begin?
Well, our sources point to teshuvah, which means repentance or turning back, and love.
Teshuvah and love, okay.
Yeah. As tools for healing these divisions. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of teshuvah, but it's a really powerful idea in Judaism.
I'm not sure I am. Tell me more.
Well, it's not just about feeling bad about your mistakes. It's about actually trying to fix them, to change your behavior and become a better person.
Right. Make amends.
Exactly.
I mean, we see so much division in the world, even just within the Jewish community itself. It can feel really overwhelming.
It is. But if we look at the reunification of Ephraim and Judah as our model, we can see it as a process.
A process, okay.
It starts with recognizing our shared heritage, understanding what each tribe brings to the table, and then actively working to bridge those differences. And what's really beautiful is that this whole idea extends beyond the Jewish people.
Oh, right. It's not just about bringing those two tribes together. It's about welcoming those who were once seen as outsiders.
Exactly. The restoration of Ephraim, it also symbolizes bringing the nations closer to the light of Israel's mission.
I see. So it's recognizing that everyone has something to contribute, that we're all part of this big tapestry of humanity.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
This is amazing. It has so many layers. It really is relevant to everyone, no matter their background.
It is. And there's one more connection I wanted to touch on.
Okay, what's that?
It's this idea that the whole concept of reunification really resonates with Yeshua's teachings. But it's important to remember that we're talking about Yeshua, the Jewish teacher. His teachings on unity and love, particularly his emphasis on forgiveness and reconciliation, they align so beautifully with this whole vision of Ephraim and Judah coming back together.
It's true. We often forget that he was Jewish and that his teachings are really rooted in Jewish tradition. So even though he lived centuries ago, his teachings are still relevant to this ancient idea of reunification.
Absolutely. His mission, to gather the lost sheep of Israel, to break down the barriers between people, it all points to that same yearning for wholeness, for healing, for the kind of unity that allows the divine light to shine through.
Wow. Okay, we have covered so much today. I mean, we talked about historical context, spiritual implications, cosmic balance, practical steps we can take, and even this connection to Yeshua's teachings.
We have.
It's clear that this whole reunification of Ephraim and Judah, it's much more than a historical event. It's a profound concept with these huge implications that go way beyond what I thought about at first.
It really is. And what's amazing is that it's not just some passive hope for the future. It's like a call to action in the present. It asks us to really examine our lives and our communities and see where we might be contributing to the division instead of fostering unity.
It's like holding a mirror up to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
If we want to see this grand reunification happen on a global scale, we have to start living by those principles ourselves.
Exactly. And it starts with recognizing the inherent value of each individual, appreciating those unique gifts that each tribe brings to the table, and then actively working to bridge those differences.
You mentioned earlier that Ephraim represents Torah wisdom, and Judah embodies kingship and prayer. It makes me wonder, how do those two forces even work together in my own life?
That is a great question.
Like, how do I balance that intellectual seeking with devotional practice? How does that work?
That's a wonderful question to think about. It's a really personal journey, but I think it lies at the heart of this whole concept. It's about finding that harmony within ourselves so we can then contribute to the greater harmony of the world.
This has been so eye-opening. I feel like I'm starting to get it, the depth of this whole reunification idea.
It is a lot to take in.
It really is.
But I guess if I could just offer one final thought.
What's that?
Don't let the enormity of it all overwhelm you.
Right.
Just focus on what speaks to you personally,
I think that's good advice. It's easy to get lost in the big picture and forget that real change starts with us.
It really does. So maybe for you, it's exploring that idea of teshuvah.
Yeah. How
you can repair a relationship in your own life. Or maybe it's thinking about how you balance intellectual curiosity with your own spiritual practice.
Right.
The beauty of this whole concept is that it gives you so many ways to grow personally.
That's a great way to put it. It's not about having all the answers.
Yeah.
Right. It's about engaging with these big questions.
Yeah.
And letting this ancient wisdom kind of guide us on our own journey toward wholeness.
Beautifully said. Just keep asking those questions, keep exploring, and keep striving for that unity, both within yourself and in the world around you.
Because who knows, maybe we'll all play a part in making that grand reunification happen sooner than we think.
Maybe we will.